Joining us from Macon, Georgia, Erickson, who runs the conservative website redstate.com. And from Washington, a host of FNC's Media Buzz, Howard Kurtz. So how do you see this, Howard?
Bill, Bob Gates is perfectly entitled to rip Barack Obama on policy, but it's an absolute betrayal to reveal private conversations with a president who trusted him to give confidential advice. And Gates has always been a classy guy. That's what's surprising here. And how can a president rely on his inner circle in times of war and peace if they're gathering material for a bestseller?
Now, I assume your reference to a private conversation is a portion of the book, and again, the Washington Post is reporting this. I haven't read the book, and neither have you, that says that in a meeting with Gates, both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton admitted they were against the surge in Iraq, which worked, because of political reasons. Is that what you're referring to?
He primarily seems to hang that on Hillary. Yes, that's a prime example of what I would call a betrayal.
But shouldn't American people know that the temperament of their leaders is now being dictated by politics instead of what's best for the nation? Isn't Gates doing a patriotic thing by exposing that?
Well, it's newsworthy information, but it also is an act by Gates of turning on the guy who held him over from the Bush administration, who gave him the Medal of Freedom. And you have to, there's such an angry and sort of score-settling tone to this book that you do have to raise some questions about Gates' motivation.
How do you see it, Mr. Erickson?
Well, you know, first of all, I don't think any of us have read it, and these excerpts from the Washington Post and the press releases are kind of like the previews of a movie. The preview always looks exciting, and the movie may actually be terrible. We need to actually read the full book and see the context. But to say that this is surprising or troubling, this is what people in Washington do. Don Reagan did it to Ronald Reagan, George Stephanopoulos and Robert Reich to Bill Clinton, Doug Feith and Paul O'Neill and Scott McClellan to George Bush. This is what secretaries of state and upper secretaries of the cabinet do.
Do you believe that is a noble thing to do?
I don't think it's a noble thing to do, but it's what they all do. I mean, it's what's been come to be expected in Washington.
But I'm trying to get what's the good of the nation here. That's what I'm trying to get. Kurtz makes the point that now presidents can't trust anybody because whatever they say in a private conversation can be fodder for a book, and that's a decent point. I mean, you got to have people around you that you can speak, you know, in an offhanded way or a joking way. I mean, the worst thing that's happening in our society is that you'll say something in a mocking way, and then some idiot will write it in a book like it was serious. Right. Happens to me all the time. But Gates looks like he wants to deliver a message to the American people. And the message that I'm getting from this, from Gates, all right, and I'd like to talk to Gates. He's hurt now, I think. He's got some kind of, but maybe we'll get to talk to him. The message, Howard, is that, listen, a lot of the very, very tough decisions, life and death decisions, are being made by politics, not what's right and wrong for the nation. That's an important thing that we need to know, Howard.
He should make that argument, and he is hardly the first, as Eric says, to write a tell-all book. But when you get into the realm of private conversations, it does seem to me that you are trying to cash in on your government service by coming up with juicy anecdotes. And here's one more thing, Bill, and that is Gates admits in the book that he had a lot of criticism of the way Barack Obama was dealing with the military and the Pentagon budget, and he didn't voice them at the time.
He couldn't because he would have been fired. It's the same old deal. If you work for a corporation or an administration and you speak out publicly against it, you can bet that Gates privately gave his best shot, and he has to make a decision.
He thought of quitting. Maybe he should have quit rather than saving it for the book.
Gates obviously came to the conclusion it was better for him and the American people and the military for him to stay there than walk. Now, Eric, you seem to be a little blasé about this thing. Well, everybody did. Yeah. You know, our philosophy on this thing is we don't justify bad behavior by pointing to other bad behavior. So I'm trying to get, is there damage to the nation because, as Howard says, the president can't trust anybody anymore, he's not going to get good advice, or are the people being served by these kinds of revelations? Take that, please.
Well, you know, I think considering what the Obama administration is doing, spying on all of us with the NSA, I mean, there's a deep bit of irony in that. Look, the president's going to get candid advice from people while they're in office. I think he knows going into this there's an expectation books may be written, short of signing people into non-disclosure agreements, which I'm not sure he could do to a cabinet advisor. He's got to know that's going to happen at some point. The other people are going to write books as well, some more favorable, some less favorable, but when they're inside the White House, inside the bubble, I think he has every reason to expect he's going to get and give candid advice, and that's just the nature of the beast in Washington.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate it.